you recall, when I started the class, I said I push the major scale, the major scale, the major scale, so that hereafter everything becomes a variation on something that you know cold, right? So now's where we first start and get some variations. So we're going to turn the page and go to page 41 to the minor chord. This is variety number 2. This is triad variety number 2. Okay? The minor chord sometimes will sound negative, angry, dark, or sad. It can express complex, multi-layered emotions, including uplifting ones. But if you just play it by itself, it's usually considered more the sad chord. Okay? Now, it uses the 1st and the 5th scale degree just like the last chord, but this time the 3rd scale degree has been flatted from the chord we just did. Okay? So it starts with a minor 3rd on the bottom, and now a major 3rd on top. Now, if this is confusing, you can flip back to 39 real quick and compare. But the major chord had a major 3rd on the bottom and a minor 3rd on top, and the minor chord is the exact opposite of that. Okay? So it's a minor 3rd on the bottom and a major chord on top. Okay? Again, you look at in the middle of page 41 in the diagram, you've got the 3 half steps at the beginning, followed by 4 half steps. Both end up being 7. There's your minor chord. So our formula now, instead of 1, 3, 5, like we've been using to come up with the major chord, now our formula for the minor chord is a 1, flat 3, and 5. With me so far? Okay? So if we're going to go 1, flat 3, and 5, let's just glance at the example at the bottom of 41 is an F minor chord. The F major scale is this: F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. Now, if it was a major, it'd be 1, 3, and 5, or F, A, and C. That's a major chord, but our formula says we're supposed to flat the 3. So we take the 3 here, and we're going to flat it. That's an F minor chord, because we've taken the 3 and flatted it. On paper, does that sort of make sense? Brett? He said the question is that similar to saying is the 3rd is diminished? You are right. Now, in theory land, diminished is almost only used for the 4th and the 5th, which we talked about in the last module. Technically, you are correct in saying that we diminished the 3rd because the definition of diminished is to lessen the interval by a half step. However, in common practice, almost no one uses the term diminish in this situation. In common practice, it's like, oh, flat the 3rd. It's almost always used as flatted. In fact, diminished as it relates to intervals is rarely used at all as it relates to intervals. Every once, because as we saw in our last module, the tritone is a diminished 4th, excuse me, a diminished 5th or an augmented 4th, right? But even then, most people don't use that term. Most of the time, we say tritone. Okay, so the words on interval level, diminished, aren't used as much. Well, we're going to find out a little bit later in this module that we use it for something else. You are correct. It is diminished, but we almost never use that term in this context. Okay? Any other questions? So take a look at page 42, and let's build some more minor chords. Everything is based off of the major scale. I'm going to try brown. Let me know how brown seems to work. I just get bored with the black. So the first column on our little diagram there is B flat minor. Everybody see that where it says B flat minor? Now, it says B flat minor, but I'm writing out the B flat major scale because everything is based on the major scale. So don't let that confuse you. The B flat major scale, and you already know this because you've studied your scales and you've got it memorized, right? They say it with me. Ready? B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, and A. And that wasn't everybody, and I know who it wasn't. I'm keeping track. This is the B flat major scale. We're trying to make a B flat minor chord. Okay? So obviously our root is still B flat, but our chord formula for minor is flat 3 and 5. So here's the 1, 3, 5. We would take the D and flat it, making it a D flat, and we keep the 5 where it is. There's your answer. Does that make sense? Let's do a few more just to double check, because if you've got this locked and loaded, it makes the rest of it a lot simpler. Let's go to the next column, the E minor chord. Now, If somebody feels like this is semi new to them, but they think they remember the E major scale, raise your hand. You think you remember the E major scale? Brett, can you say the E major scale for me? Yes. G sharp, A, B, C sharp. And the right answer, D sharp. Excellent job. Candy. Catch. Poor Bobby, whenever I shoot to Brett, I'm out, take Bobby's head out. So now our minor formula is 1, flat 3, and 5. If our root is E, then the major third is G sharp, but we're going to flat it. So G sharp flatted by 1/2 step is a G natural. You could say just G is fine. I'm just saying G natural to make sure. B, there's your answer. That's E minor. Moving on. Let's take a look at C minor. Yeah. Let's take a look at C minor. C major scale, everybody say it. Now just indulge me. Everybody actually say it. Like to get your lips moving. Ready? C major scale, go. D, D, E, F, G, A, B. How many sharps and flats? 0, right? Now, we're going to do the formula. So 1, 3, and 5 would be C, E, and G. We flat the third, so E flat, boom, there's C minor. C, E flat, and G. With me so far? Let's do 2 more. I'm going to go ahead and give you for the video on D minor, the answer is D, F, and A. But I want to go ahead and write out the next 2. So F sharp minor. This one gets fun. I'll go ahead and do this for you just because I'm nice and feeling indulgent. So you don't have to, but if you're looking at your scale reference sheet, you'll know that the F sharp major scale is F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, and the constantly controversial E sharp. Right? Which you've answered questions on that in the community and in our last module. Why is that an E sharp? Why can't it just be F? Now, if we want to make our 1, 3, and 5, 1, 3, 5, it's going to be an F sharp, an A sharp, and a C sharp. If we make it a minor, we flatten or decrease by 1/2 step the A sharp. A sharp down to 1/2 step is A natural. There's your answer. Yeah? Now, there's a few of you that have been making music for a long time, and you say, Austin, I'm totally with you. I'm over it. Stay with me. Because if you stay with me on this foundational stuff, then when we start getting to the trickier stuff, it'll make a little more sense. Last one is G minor. I will give a big piece of candy to the first person with their hand up that can tell me the G major scale. I'm going to go with Ben, because I saw you both at the same time, and he's younger than you. I've already had candy. So, Ben, what's the G major scale?
A, B, C, D, F.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to stay with Ben for a minute. So the G major scale, 1 sharp, F sharp. What do I put in the root column? Root row? Next one? B. And then? Okay. So that gives me a 1, 3, 5 of the major. And I'm still asking Ben, if I turn this into a minor chord, I have to flatten the third. What do I do? Make the B a B flat is the right answer. There's your answer. You know what? You're typically quieter than the average Joe, so I'm going to give you 2. And I don't want to hit anybody in the process. Now let's talk about the symbology, which is there at the bottom. G minor can be written like this, but I don't think very often it usually is. There's usually a shortcut. So you'll see G min. I think sometimes some people love the idea of making the major capital M and the minor a lowercase m, but not everybody's consistent with that. Careful. In fact, on Finale, a common notation software that I use all the time, I love the Jazz font. The Jazz font lowercase m looks a lot like the uppercase m, but I really like the font, so I leave it. So don't make the common mistake of just assuming that a lowercase m and an uppercase m but they are in many cases. So you'll also see it like this with just a lowercase m. Okay? Christian music. Now you'll also find that my friend Bobby's finding out that in a lot of other circles, you'll see a minus symbol. She thinks it's just jazz, but I've seen it all over the place. Okay? So a minus symbol is also something that can mean minor at times. Very common usage. Okay, so if you see G minus, that's G minor. No. The question was, can G plus be a G major? And it's a really easy assumption to make. You're going to find out before we finish this module that G plus actually typically means something else. Great question, though.